so we can actually start. Guys, welcome. This is the first meetup of this year from Agile in-house. We are making these meetups for already a year, maybe even more, if I remember. This is first in a series. We hope to keep the series bi-weekly, so every other week you will have a chance to learn something more and hear some opinions and experiences from the trenches about different topics. Today, I will be taking the word and we'll be talking about retrospective. And how about we just dive directly in? Is that okay? Everybody ready? Let's do that. I will share my screen and hopefully it will be working. Let's see. You guys should be able to see my screen. Is that right?
Yes.
Good. There is a concept of eating your own dog food, if you ever heard about it. That's a concept where whenever you're claiming something, you should actually live by it. Wherever you're developing an application, you should actually be using it. So I will follow this concept throughout this whole retrospective. If you ever attended one of my trainings, when I talk about retrospective and about stories and story points and user stories in particular, explaining a thing you would like to do in your product, I always talk about concept of 4 W's. You may heard about user story being described in a way that as a person, I would like this and that in order to do this and this and this. I kind of expanded into 4 W's. Those are the 4 questions you should ask whenever you want to know something and explain something to your team. Why are we doing this? What this actually is? Who is involved? Who are the stakeholders? And when should we do it? So today, talking about retrospectives, I will try to ask and answer these 4 questions about retrospectives. Let's start with the objective. Why the heck are we even having a retrospective? I will start with the team. Obviously, we want to improve the team. In a Scrum way, and not only in Scrum, because a retrospective is a broader concept that doesn't necessarily have to adhere to Scrum. But if you want to improve the team, it's good to have a place and time for it, to have a dedicated process meeting place. And thus kind of separating the improvement of a team from the work. So what do you want to improve in the team? You might want to improve, let's get it out, let's see, technical skills. You may figure out that your team doesn't have all the skills necessary. You know, not all teams are born ideal, not all people know everything. Actually, there's nobody who knows everything. So you have to improve your team skills every now and then. And you can decide that the team will dedicate some time to learning, experimenting, and gaining some new skills. Or, and now Scrum purists would probably kill me for saying that, you can decide to hire a new team member. You can decide to get external help that the skill that you're talking about is missing. And maybe probably for a short time, maybe for a long time, but you can actually do that. You're not restricted by if you're adhering to Scrum and you're living as the ideal Scrum team that is self-organized and should know everything and be able to deliver product. I think that should not stop you from getting external help. So retrospective is a good place where you can improve the technical skills of your team, where you could decide on improvement. What type of things we need? Do we need Java developer? Do we need designer? Do we need more design skills? Or do we need more assembler skills or whatever is missing, that discussion may happen. Okay, we can grow team members. As I said, the team should be self-organized and self-managed. That doesn't always mean that we have to focus on work, technical skills. We have to bear in mind that people are people, not machines. And we should kind of take care of ourselves within the team, grow us, and we're talking manager, to grow them as persons, as people. You can take it from many different corners, many different points of views, but retrospective can become a platform where such a growth is made available and made possible. So again, you can start talking on your retrospective about, well, we are not good communicators. We don't feel safe here in this company. We don't feel growing as people. And this discussion might happen. And you might actually, if you find yourself in a role of Scrum Master or Operations Officer, you might want to just pull out this card. This is the retrospective. We will talk only about how we grow ourselves, our team members. There is one point why we should do retrospective that I love to pull out myself as a Scrum Master. And this is about that we should deal with non-performers and slackers. Many teams I found in my career are kind of reluctant to open up this topic. It's always like the managers should solve that. There is a slacker in our team, non-performer, somebody who just doesn't give a crap about what is going on. And they always say, well, the managers should solve that, the management should solve that. But we are self-organized, aren't we? We are self-managed. So the topic of slackers and non-performers should come up. So there is a place to actually open this topic up. Sorry for the delay. We might decide on many actions towards such a slacker. I've seen teams decide just to fire the person, just stop working with that. I've seen teams on the other hand that thought about a system that let the person in question start learning more and start showing that he, in this case it was he, would like to be part of the team and just doesn't have idea how to do that. He was just very confused in this role. So they've come up with a system of small steps and small trainings and kind of mirroring the other guys and these kind of things that allowed him to grow and get back into the team. So you might want to open up the topic of dealing with slackers and non-performers. Other objective you should have in mind while organizing retrospective is that you might want to close the feedback loop. You've all heard about the PDCA loop, didn't you? Mr. Deming taught us many years ago about that. And there are many feedback loops we are closing throughout different processes. You are definitely closing the feedback loop on your product in your sprint review or demo. But you should also close the feedback loop on the process. Every team has its own process. Every company has its own huge processes. You might be from a small company where the processes are obvious and kind of easy, or you might be from a huge company that processes are basically unknowable. But by performing retrospective, you might want to close that feedback loop on the process, so you can improve that. You can actually say, okay, our internal process, how we handle tasks from in progress or from new till done, might be different. You might choose a small improvements, tweak a little thing there, tweak a little thing there, or you might actually decide to ditch everything out and go anew, and thus deciding between the Kaizen and the Kaikaku approach, which is kind of integral to the production system. Feedback on people. I've already opened up a topic of non-performers and slackers. Retrospective, being what it is actually a great place where you can start collecting feedback on people in the team. I actually never seen a better platform how to do that. The old ways of anonymous questionnaires and manager asking kind of covertly everybody what they think about everybody else didn't work that much for me as opening this topic in the retrospective. So the retrospective can serve as the opportunity to just shout out at each other or give a huge thanks to somebody who actually deserves that. Already told you closing the PDCA loop. The Mr. Deming was actually very right about the devising this plan, do, study, act loop. We have to make sure that we close this cycle every now and then on everything we consider. And since there are only few places and occasions we can do that on kind of a non-usual things like the product we do on the sprint review, the retrospective is the ideal place to close that loop every single time. Let's see about what actually retrospective is. For me, and this is just me talking my personal opinion, retrospective is always a highly facilitated workshop. And I mean, really highly facilitated workshop. Somebody says that it's an opportunity for Scrum Master to shine, to show off his skills. It's a workshop where you should be really prepared. The facilitation is the key aspect, and you should act as a guide for the team. Why do I say that? Teams usually don't know how to perform retrospective themselves. If you say, well, this is the opportunity to improve in whatever aspect you would like to improve, they start to just, oh, we should talk that, we should talk that, and this kind of blabbering over each other. And they may end up with some improvement, they may end up with some argument, but you rest assured that maybe less than half of the people will be actually heard, and more than half of ideas will be just non-existent, because everybody will be going wild and there will be no facilitation. That's why I say it's a highly facilitated workshop. You as a Scrum Master have to make sure that what is happening makes sense for the team, that everybody's voice is heard, that everybody has a chance to actually think, what needs to be changed, what needs to be improved. And everybody has a chance to say that in their own time, in their own manners. We might have different personalities in the team, different approaches to problems, and you have to take care of that. That's why the facilitation is absolutely necessary. I will stay with safe space for a little while, because making sure that the retrospective is a safe space is probably the only thing you have to do the rest may happen on its own, but making the retrospective really a safe space so that people can talk and want to talk about the problems that are actually burning them and actually preventing them from performing is really your or Scrum Master's responsibility, the facilitator's responsibility. It has to be executed with people in mind. It's not just some retrospective, is not just some mechanical thing. You can read tons of books about retrospectives. You can read tons of how-to guides that will tell you, you do this, you do that, you do that. I will actually show you some web pages with some very neat and good exercises what to do in a retrospective. But if you don't set up the safe space there, everything will be just talk with no actual sense for the team. There may be some hints of sense here and there because people are not afraid to talk. But making a safe space, it's really crucial. And I've noticed Kurt has his hands up.
Yeah, I don't know if you would prefer to have questions en route or you save them till later.
Let's take them en route. I didn't notice there are questions. Sorry for that.
But I have one. That's why I raised my hand.
Okay.
So, I mean, you dealt with the problem of, or talked about slackers, and now you talk about safe space, and I'm just wondering how you reconcile that, because I would probably tend to say you can observe and you can figure out if you have a problem with slackers, but you don't deal with them in the safe space because then it won't be a safe space. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I get that a lot. If it's a true safe space, you're actually able to deal with slackers because you're able to speak out honestly. The border between kind of safe space and a really safe space is where you feel really good just telling somebody in your team, hey man, this is not working. You're not working. And you not feel like shaking and it's kind of stressful situation. It's very hard to get there, and I bet you most of the teams are not there most of the time. And this is the slackers and non-performance topic is very difficult to get the safe space right and proper. I've had the situation I mentioned. We spent actually like half an hour just talking kind of nonsense and just getting to know each other, quote unquote, because we knew each other, but talking gibberish just to get into mood like, hey, everything is fine, everything is okay, nobody will be fired, we can talk, let's open this up, we don't perform good, and now people will start talking. So getting that safe enough space for people to actually talk about slackers and deal with that issue, that's probably the hardest one there. You don't have to go to that extreme with other topics if you want to address different topics, but I think you can get there if you want to, and it's not a contradiction.
Can I ask you a question, Robert? Do you think one thing is this culture in countries, because there are also different ways to communicate and stuff from different cultures in different countries, but also in companies, the culture that is there in the rest of the company. Have you seen that also influences how easy it is to create that safe space?
Definitely.
Can I just say there's another raised hand as well, just so you know that, because I don't think you can see everyone.
That's right. I can see privilege. I will just answer Vibeka's question. I will go to privilege. Vibeka, you're right. Honestly, the more teams you work with, the more diverse teams you work with, the more you can see this kind of distinction. And many cultures still thinks and are kind of afraid to deal with the topics that really belongs to HR and manager discussions anywhere else than with the manager and the HR. And it's you have to kind of bear it in mind when you're designing the retrospective with your team. Who do you have there? You know, are they from the same culture or different cultures? Did they work together for long enough time to actually understand the cultural references and the differences they have? You know, all these questions you have to bear in mind while designing the retrospective.
Thank you.
Yep. Privy, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Robert. So I had a different view altogether on these slackers and, let's say, non-performers. And I tend to think that this is something that needs to be discussed well before. I could imagine it in a situation whereby I have no idea, like on my own, I am thinking I'm actually the best performer, yet the others are regarding me as like a slacker or something like that. So I would deal with it in a different way, and I would expect it from the team themselves, that during the stand-up, if they see that something is slacking along the way or Privy is slacking along the way, they shouldn't wait for the retrospective. They should immediately mention it, because I can imagine if we are using a sprint for 10 days, you don't mention it, and then you wait after 10 days to come and bring this in the retrospective. I think it's not productive for me, because we could easily say it and the team should have already observed it during or along the way, rather than wait at the end. And this kind of create that safe environment that if I'm going to slacken up, the team would pinpoint and would discuss about it. Yes, we would also talk about it in the retrospective, but already the person is aware. They're not like, wow, surprise, you're a slacker. So this is how I would personally approach it.
Yep. Sorry for not making that clear. I actually meant exactly the scenarios that you described. I didn't meant that retrospective is the only place to deal with slackers, but maybe a good place to actually, you know, like make the decision what to do next. Definitely people should speak up sooner than just wait for retrospective. And that goes for probably all the topics you want to open up in the retro. The retro is just a good place to really think about more permanent solutions and more solid and concrete solutions. I would say last from Kurt, and I would like to continue.
Just to comment on that, I've actually seen in the team, unfortunately, I was not the one inventing or conducting it, but a Scrum Master who used the retrospective to show appreciation to the team for actually having done exactly what Privy said, to deal with it in a grown-up manner, and not just sit down and whine about it. And so that's another aspect of show appreciation of the good things that happened.
Yep. Brilliant. So safe space. I see that this is a very hot topic. Let's say I always design the retrospectives around that theme, and honestly, I'm not afraid to spend half of the retrospective just setting up the safe space. If you think about retro as a meeting, you might start stopping thinking that. How do you say that in English? Because as a Scrum Master and facilitator who's preparing that, this step of preparing your safe space actually can start, you know, way up front. You know, you can talk to people at a water cooler and a coffee and a pub, you know, just making sure that everybody's mind is set in a way that the safe space is created there. Brilliant. And guys, thank you for the questions. Last thing I put down as what the retrospective actually is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for the team to get better. And I hope that you guys don't disagree with me, because if you don't look at the retrospective this way, if you think it's anything else but an opportunity, you might be missing an opportunity, a lot of opportunities in my sentences. So for me, the retrospective, and I see it all the time, is like, hey, this is the time, this is the place we can get better. And if we don't grab it by shoulder, That's we might miss the opportunity. So let's use it. It's 2 hours or 1 hour, or how much time did you dedicate to your retrospective? And let's use that up fully. Let's grab that. I will leave how to execute success retro for the last bit. And I would like to go to stakeholders. Who do you think should be invited to the retrospective? And now you have the answer. My experience and opinion is that all of them should be invited if the situation calls for it. The minimum is obviously the Scrum team, developers, product owner, and Scrum Master is there facilitating. That's the obvious minimum. But I've seen instances where product owner being in retro was actually a bad thing, where the team was afraid of the person being in the room and they were not able to solve any problems, speak up properly, and open up the problems that really were bugging them. So product owner can be removed. So it's only developers. Management can be invited, and it can be really beneficial that where you have upper management of the company invited to your retro if you feel like so, if the team feels good enough and safe enough to perform such retrospective, that the management presence can shine the light on some problems that are not visible either to the management or to the Scrum team. You might consider inviting up shareholders, stakeholders that might be from different teams. You might have a complex situation in your company, so you might have stakeholders of your product in different teams. You might have true stakeholders, like really shareholders there, or you may think about inviting a customer. And that's a concept I only heard about. I didn't experience it myself, but I heard about that the real customer and user of the product was invited to the retrospective, and there were some discussions that were really useful for the internal team. Not talking only the product, but talking actually the internal process. So you might think about like inviting the whole set or subsets of this list. You might think about inviting other people that are not on the list. It's really upon the team. Alex, there's a question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the thing you said about removing the product owner for a retrospective. If that's the case, haven't the Scrum Master failed in creating a good environment for the whole team, because the Scrum team is also consists of the product owner? So wouldn't that be a bigger problem you have there? As I see
it might be.
Yeah.
It might be. It's just a situation. There was a question about different countries and different like backgrounds.
Yeah.
And more often than not, the Eastern countries, the post-communistic countries, tend to view anybody in a, let's say, place of power. I don't know if I'm using the right words, but product owner has kind of a place of power. He's a decision maker. And many teams I've seen see him as the manager.
Oh.
Meaning that if I say something in front of my manager, I might be fired.
Okay.
And that's the mentality that is there regardless of Scrum Master. That can be there from even from previous companies. The people came from a different company where this was actually true.
So Robert, what you're actually saying, that this would be in organizations where the Agile Foundation isn't mature enough.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
You're in a situation that is not ideal, and you really kind of can mess more up with inviting the product owner than not.
Yeah.
And I myself been in a situation where I had to ask the PO to just leave the retrospective and give team a space to talk. And we decided to do that for several retrospectives in a row, and then that he will come back, And I had like 2 months of time to talk to him personally, time to time, explaining what is happening and kind of explaining him the attitude of a team towards the product ownership and everything going on. And he understood that what he made in the past was actually hurting the team. So he stopped doing that, you know. So it was actually beneficial that he stepped down of the retrospective. Good. So developers and product owners, the Scrum team, it's the obvious. Sometimes you might consider even removing the product owner. I like to invite the management as often as I can for them to see. Sometimes the manager of the team, manager of the company actually asks me to be invited, and you have to be sure that the team is okay with that. The stakeholders and the customers are, I've heard about it, never seen it, but I think it might be a beneficial concept if you really perform it right. Now there is a last question from my 4 W's remaining before we have a little breakdown rooms, and that's when. And guys, this is kind of an obvious answer: before sprint planning and after sprint review. I'm deliberately not saying in between those two. There are teams that perform retrospective in the middle of a sprint, basically a random time where they feel it's a good time to do that. Usually how it works is that you have a sprint review, then you have a retrospective, and then you have a planning. But sometimes this succession of events is not possible, not beneficial, and doesn't even make sense. So you might consider removing the retrospective from the flow and putting it somewhere in the middle. But you have to be very careful while doing that, because you have to realize that this retrospective is happening after a sprint review that has been a week ago. So you might forget what happened there, and is happening for the sprint planning that might happen in a week or 2 in the future. So the concepts you agree on the retrospective may come into play in 2 weeks, and you might forget about it. So you have to be very careful with placing your retro, but I don't like the restriction of retro being exactly between the sprint planning and the sprint review, because it might limit you in your work. Again, it's designed for a purpose. It's there for a purpose because you learned something in your sprint review. You want to reflect on that and close that PDCA loop with the process and reflect your changes in the next sprint planning. That's the fastest response you can actually get. But again, you might find your team in a situation where this is not beneficial and you need some distance from the sprint review, and you need some distance till sprint planning. I know I've been pointing out some controversial ideas here, and I'm not talking purely Scrum Guide stuff. I'm talking from the trenches and from the experience. I kind of know the value in all of that, and I lived through basically all the concept I've explained. But I would like you now to think about what I just said and put in your head and discuss in small groups. And Kurt, I will ask you to start the breakout rooms. We will break you in the breakout rooms. You may do 4 breakout rooms, Kurt, please. And think about if you would add something to the list, or if you would remove something from said list. I will show you, I will share with you the list I'm talking about so you can actually access it while we're talking in the breakout rooms. There you go. In the messages, you have the list. And when we break into breakout rooms, I would like to just talk about what would you like to add or remove. And after the 5 minutes, we will just sum up, and I will spend a few more minutes talking about how to execute a successful retro. So guys, was there any conclusion of the discussion that you reached?
Do you want to go, Martin, for our room?
I quite happily. I might be on mute. Let me check.
We
No,
can
I'm
hear
not.
you.
No,
Good.
you're not. You're good.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. You know, sometimes I find it difficult in Zoom to tell sometimes because it's off the bottom of the screen. We thought that not the only thing that we would remove would be the other people that are not members of the team from the who column, because it might reduce. In fact, I would say it would reduce the safety that the team feels to have candid discussions. But that there's nothing wrong with the team deciding as a team that next retrospective we're going to invite some of those people because we want to have a specific discussion with them about an issue we have.
Yep.
So that so not an open, but as needed.
Yeah, exactly as I meant that. Yeah.
And then instead of maybe inviting them for the sprint review we talked about and not in the retrospective.
That's right. That's right. So anybody else wants to share? Stira, do you want to share our room?
Yeah, I don't think we discovered anything super crucial, but yeah, I think we agreed that it's good not to use the retro as kind of validating the measurements or performance review or something like that. That it's not
Avoid
a
KPIs.
good place and time to do that.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Other groups who would like to share?
Yeah, I can say from what we talk about is actually how when you at the end of a retro, how and the team end up with some actions. How do you put those actions into actions? And we were in a team where we have different cultures, as we spoke about this topic, and it was actually quite interesting. And well, for my part, I could say, well, what we do when we have these actions, well, I tend to, well, it's the team members who should run with the actions. I can also have an actions to run with, or if it's the whole team that needs to self-improve, well, then we normally put it in the board. We also talked about the issue with somewhere in the world there are some Scrum Masters that maybe would have to run with all the topics because that's how the culture is, and it was really different how we approached the problems and also the self-improvement areas. But the point is getting from the actions agreed on, then move on to put the actions into action. How do you actually do that?
Real actions happening. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. And I hope we got all the rooms. Am I right or am I wrong? No buyers? Okay. Let's dedicate the last few minutes of the time we have to the last part. I wanted to share with you the way I am performing retrospectives. And this is just the way I am performing them. Doesn't mean that you have to perform them in as long as you keep in mind all the whys and what it actually is, you can go wild. There are two major inspiration wells for me, where I draw the inspiration. One is the liberating structures. There is a page and a book, The Surprising Power of Liberating Structures. It's a collection of several techniques and facilitation techniques, how to perform not a retrospective specifically, but talks and within the teams that might size from 2 people to 200 people. And they're really good techniques, actually so good that some of them crawled up into Agile in-house's trainings and my trainings. I use them in the training. So you might consider looking that up, liberating structures. One of my favorite wells of knowledge is Retromat. Put down Corina Baldauf and Timon Fedicki. It's let's say hundreds of facilitation techniques, exercises, and things you can do with your team. They are structured in a way a 5-step retrospective. I will explain in a bit, but you can basically go there on the page and just skim through and find out what you want to do, what works for your team, what exercise can be good, can be wrong. I picked out one example. Sometimes I like to start retrospective with actually asking, why the hell are we doing a retrospective? I like that the team explain the others what they see behind the retrospective, what is the value they are seeking there. That may serve as a checkup for those who perform 100 retrospective, so they already know, or may serve actually as like an eye-opener that everybody expects something else from the retro. So you have to get the team on the same plane. And my, let's say, most favorite exercise is Genie in a Bottle. It goes in a way that you introduce the facilitator, you introduce yourself as the genie, and the team found a bottle with the genie. And now you grant them 3 wishes, as in the fairy tale. But you're not the ordinary genie, you're a Scrum genie. So you have limitations. It's not just 3 wishes for everybody. Everybody has 3 wishes, but 1 wish has to be for yourself, 1 wish has to be for the team, and the 3rd for the whole company. Then you let them write down those wishes. And that exercise in Retromat actually ends there, but I like to expand on it in a way that you start limiting those wishes. You make them decide which top 3 of all of those wishes that were mentioned has to be done, because you are not the ordinary genie, you are a Scrum genie. And then, because you are evil genie, you can even play a devil. You make them choose who is going to do what towards those 3 wishes, or 1 or 2, or how many will you end up. In this way, very easy way, organization-wise, you can end up with a solid commitment that will turn out to an action. So this is the one example from the Retromat I want to share with you. And the way how Retromat organizes the retrospective is the 5-step retro. First step, you're setting the stage. You have to get the people, and I'm sorry that I'm kind of talking fast, we are running out of time, but let's say 5-step retrospective, you have to get the people first in the room, both physically and mentally. So usually some icebreakers, eye-openers, some quick exercises, something that will stop people thinking about work and make them work about the retro, about what's happening right now. Then you go to another step, gather data. You're gathering as much data as possible, as much thinking that's in the room as you can. You broaden the mindset of everybody. You're just searching for the topics. Then you try to generate insight of those data. You have all the data, all the wishes, all the things that can change on the board, and you just try to figure out, what's connected to what means, what does it mean, so what can be done with that, and kind of make sense of that data. The 4 steps is to decide what to do. Make those action items. And in the same manner that you actually open the retrospective up, that you have to get the people inside the room, you actually, as a facilitator, you have to get them outside of the room mentally. So you close the retrospective with a proper exercise, so people will get their closure, and the retrospective will get their closure. So this is just an idea you might consider when performing a retrospective, the 5-step retrospective. This is probably the most beneficial way of performing retrospective I found in my career. You might consider the liberating structures, the Retromat, all is there. And there are many, many other resources, books, and articles done on retrospective. So that was probably everything from me. I will try to see if there are some more questions. There are some messages in the chat. Okay. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to read the chat if there are some questions to the topics and such. Okay, guys, so I personally thank you very much that you've been listening to me for the whole time and you've engaged in a conversation in the breakout rooms, and I hope you got anything out of it. Before we actually leave, I believe Anna has some treats for you. So before we sign up, Anna, it's yours.
Thank you, Robert. Yes. Can you see my screen? I hope so.
Now we do.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Okay, so I just wanted to alert you to the fact that we have another webinar coming up, a meetup in 2 weeks' time, and the topic then will be estimation techniques. So practical team-based estimation. So show up for that if you are interested in that. I just want to say that this webinar is brought to you by Agile Lean House, which Robert has mentioned a couple of times. We are a small company based in Denmark, but Robert is from the Czech Republic, and we also have other people as colleagues in other countries. Here we have Agile Lean House depicted as a house where it's the roof, and then you see you see all of our products and services as columns. We have Agile Lean Leadership, which is a framework or a set of patterns for scaling out the principles of Scrum and Agile out into the entire organization. We have courses, consultancy or coaching, and then we produce tools that also help organizational agility. I'll show you a little bit more. We have courses in Scrum Master courses, product owner courses, and the track you see in the middle is an Agile Lean Leadership track. All these circles are one-day courses that can be combined. We have coaching, mentoring based on a quite experienced network that help us out. And then here's the Gamba, which is the biggest tool that we've developed. It is, Robert already showed you a little bit of it because he did his presentation out of the story match, which I've never seen before, which was very interesting, Robert. It's a workflow tool used by Scrum teams and non-Scrum teams, and it especially caters to the needs of product owners or others in similar strategic roles. So that was it. Thank you for coming, and you can get in touch with us either by sticking around after this webinar, or you can write to info@agileleanhouse.com or visit one of our websites. If you go to agileleanshop.com, you can find also a free Gamba trial if you'd be interested.